So again, my name is Gwen Sorley. My background is in education. I have a master's in education, and I started using play attention when I was teaching back in 1996. So I've been using play attention with every age from about 5 years old all the way up through adulthood for the past 25 plus years. So hopefully my experiences using play attention with lots of different individuals will give you a better understanding of the program and how we can customize a plan that will work for you. Now, as we discuss all the different areas of play attention and the cognitive areas we address, I am looking through the list of people who are here today. And I noticed that many of the people who are here today have attended webinars in the past. And as you know, if you've been to our past webinars, we do a lot of webinars on topics of executive function. So we talk about organization, we talk about social skills, we talk about working memory. We have an upcoming webinar that I hope you've all registered for, which is going to be on procrastination. Don't put that off. Sign up for that. So we give you all of these tips and strategies to help you improve these different areas. And, although those tips and strategies are really great, and we want you to have strategies in your toolbox, at some point we have to get to the root cause so that all of those tips and strategies you're given on a day-to-day basis make sense, that they're actually beneficial for you. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here. And that is, I was working with a woman a couple of weeks ago. We were in a consultation, and she said, everyone keeps telling me, well, just keep a calendar or just do a to-do list. But it's not that easy. She said, I know how to write a to-do list. I start every single morning with a to-do list. The problem is, I never get anything done on that to-do list. Can any of you relate to that? You can use the raise your hand icon or type in yes in the chat box if you can relate to that. Okay, a lot of you are raising your hands. And that's so common, right? That you understand a calendar, you understand the strategies that people are giving you, but for some reason, they don't seem to work for you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How can we get to the root cause and develop the cognitive skills, those foundational skills you need to make those strategies effective? Because if you really think about all of the skills you need in order for a to-do list to make sense, first of all, we have to improve her memory so that she remembers that she has a to-do list, right? That's the first thing. We also have to work on sustained attention so that when you start number one, you're able to keep your attention on number one and work on number one until completion. That means we have to work on impulse control so that you don't start number one and impulsively jump down to number three. We have to work on filtering distractions so that when you start number one, you're not distracted by the cat in the room or the laundry or some other task you feel like you should get done at that time. So there are a lot of skills we need to work on just in that to-do list, right? We have to have a strong working memory. We have to be able to sustain our attention, work on something until we complete it. So task completion, we have to filter distractions, we have to control our impulsivity. There are so many skills within that. And those are all examples of skills that we can actually put into your program and start developing. You can think of this too, if any of you have children, how many of you here have a child with ADHD and you have a 504 in place? Any of you here? You can use that raise your hand or type yes. Okay, so many of you say you do, and you can even type some of the accommodations they're making for you in that 504, right? Because if we think about the accommodations, and the accommodations, again, these are like the strategies, they're good. And we want you to have those strategies or accommodations in place. However, it's not enough, right? Because one of the most common accommodations we make for our students is longer test time. In theory, that is a good accommodation. However, if we're not simultaneously developing the skills that he needs or she needs in order to make use of that longer test time, then it doesn't make sense, right? In order for that longer test time to be effective and useful, then we also have to teach them how to sustain their attention to that task. We have to teach them how to process the information and get that information from their heads down onto the paper. We have to teach them how to filter all those distractions going on during that testing time, both external and internal. So there are all of these skills we have to simultaneously teach while using these accommodations. If we don't, then longer test time just ends up being longer time to daydream. Kim brings up a good point too. She says her son wasn't even diagnosed until he got to college. So that comes into play too, right? We have a lot of individuals who are now getting diagnosed later in life. And so it's important for you to know that what we know through neuroplasticity, that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable, that we can continue to develop skills through adulthood. We know that through neuroplasticity, that labels make no difference. ADHD, we can still develop skills even though we have a label. We can still develop skills even though we are maybe 20 or 40. That it's not too late. Even if we're 60, we continue to develop skills throughout our lifetime in response to a challenge. So play attention is appropriate from any age, from 5 all the way through adulthood. So we specialize in one thing. We specialize in helping you reach your goals. And I know that all of you here today are here because you have a goal in mind, right? What are your goals? Go ahead and type them in the chat box. Maybe for Kim, it's to help her son develop skills so that he's successful in university. For you, you might be an adult who wants that job promotion that keeps eluding you. Maybe you have a younger child who's super bright, but seems to be struggling with the simplest tasks. Go ahead and type in the chat box why you're here today. What are your goals so that we can all kind of get a better understanding of who's here and what kind of common goals do we all share? Excellent. So Marissa says that she wants to help her child and herself be more productive. Kim says, help child not struggle so much with school, work, and relationships. Very good. Mike is here for world peace. Well, that's a good thought too. Marcy says, work more effectively. Very good. Coke says, help my son become a successful student and human. His self-esteem is low just having been diagnosed in 5th grade. We need to both learn to focus and have better relationships. Lots of struggles right now. And, you bring up so many important things there that, he's been struggling. Now he's at 5th grade. And so we really need to start developing skills because 6th grade hits when we get into that transition into middle school where everyone expects you to have strong executive function. It's a really critical time to help him develop those skills so that he can be successful and really change that self-esteem and that self-image from someone who everything may feel right now that everything is outside of his control. We want to show him that he can control all of this and help him develop that. Andrea is here to support clients who struggle with executive function. Good. Excellent. And a lot of you brought up relationships, and that's such an important part here because so many people develop difficulties with relationships. And we do have a specific exercise within Play Attention too for social skills, just to simply help you start developing those abilities to pick up on those social cues, process that information, and then respond. So we can help you reach these goals. Adrian says, help myself, self-diagnosed after friends alerted me to consider ADHD at 81 years old. I see it in my family also. Adrian, I'm glad I stopped what I was saying and read that because that is very important. Like I said, we have a lot of adults now using Play Attention. And I can tell you that we have a lot of adults in their 70s and 80s using play attention. And so that goes back to what we know about neuroplasticity, right? It used to be thought that after the age of 9, our brain didn't change that much, but we now know that that's not true. That at 81 years old, in response to a challenge, your brain can create these new neural pathways required for not only attention and filtering distractions, but strong executive function. So you bring up a really important point about you're seeing it in your family also, because no one knows what causes ADHD, but it does seem to run in many families. So it is very rare that we only work with one family member. So if you're here considering the home program, know that we can develop a customized neurocognitive training plan for both children and adults within the family. And usually we work with at least one parent and at least one child, or at least one grandparent, parent and child. So that is very common. And we were the pioneers in neurocognitive training. We actually invented the genre back in the early 90s. It was our founder, Peter Freer, who started researching the different attention training techniques that were being used because he was working with both children and adults with attention difficulties and thought there has to be a better way, right? Has to be a better way to help all of these bright individuals really reach their goals and reach their full potential. So when he was investigating the different attention training techniques that were being done, he came across the work that Dr. Pope and Dr. Paulson were doing at NASA. And what they were doing were they were integrating feedback technology with their simulator training, meaning they were monitoring the brain states of their pilots and astronauts while they were engaged in their simulator training. So if they were very attentive, if they were in that peak zone, they were able to control their flight simulator very easily. All the controls were automatic. It was easy to do their job. But if they became distracted or anxious or stressed, then all of the controls became very sluggish and it became harder for them to do their job. So they were getting real-time feedback regarding their attentive state while practicing their job. And the founder of our company, Peter Freer, thought, that's brilliant. If I can show my clients their attentive state while developing all of the cognitive skills they need in order to be successful, then I have a comprehensive program. And that was the very foundation of play attention. And that's what makes us unique and effective. It's what we teach and how we teach it. And we do this by integrating feedback technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping to provide you with the most comprehensive approach available. So this is our brain aware technology. And on the back, there are 3 sensors. And those sensors, when I place this body wave armband on my arm, those sensors monitor my brain activity that tells us how attentive I am. And then that information is given over to the computer where I'm allowed to control all of the cognitive exercises just with my mind, or more specifically, my attention alone. Just like the pilots and astronauts with NASA were able to control their flight simulator just with their attentive state, you're going to be able to control your exercises, working on attention stamina and working memory and social skills. You're going to control them with your attentive state. And you're going to receive constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not you truly are focused and paying attention. And that's a really important first step in the learning process. Because right now, if you look at your child or your clients or your partner and you say, I need you to pay attention, and they have an attention difficulty or they may have been diagnosed with ADHD, what do they typically say back to you when you say, I need you to pay attention? Go ahead and type in the chat box what you're typically hearing. I want to see if you're hearing the same thing I was hearing. Okay, excellent. Yes, a lot of you, Julie, Adam, Bethany, Lauren, you're all saying, I am, right? I am paying attention. And they really think that they are. but they just haven't developed what it takes for them personally to stay very attentive to low stimuli for long periods of time. So what we're doing is we're taking that very abstract concept and making it concrete and controllable. So you actually see your attentive state in real time. You feel what you're doing, and you're allowed to practice very specific cognitive skills. So all of our cognitive exercises, whether you're working on, like I mentioned earlier, social skills or auditory processing, all of our exercises are brain enabled, meaning you have to be paying attention in order to activate the activity. If you're not paying attention, then the activity will stop or the character will go in the wrong direction, and you have to focus back in order to continue. And that is so empowering, like we were talking about earlier, with, and Mike says, effectively developing greater self-awareness. That's exactly it. You now are able to develop that self-regulation and self-monitoring you need in order to recognize when you're paying attention, when you're not paying attention, and more importantly, over time, you'll know how to control it on your own because you've actually had that opportunity to practice it. And that's the really critical part, because especially if you have a young child and you as parent are serving as your child's self-regulation, right? You're saying, get back on task, get back on task, and you're regulating them. Now we want to empower them so that they're able to self-regulate and self-monitor. And again, not just as children, but as adults as well. So the reason we incorporate that attention with the cognitive skill areas is because we know that there are three catalysts necessary for brain change. Because when we talk about developing executive function or strengthening executive function, which is our end goal, right? We know that we're sparking brain change, and brain change doesn't just occur. There are very specific catalysts that are required for brain change, and we've incorporated all of those into play attention. The first, of course, is attention, right? You can have a great counselor. You can have a great life coach. You can have a great teacher. But if you're having a hard time paying attention to that individual or that process, it's very difficult for you to get maximum benefit. So that's why all of our exercises mandate that you are actively engaged. The next is challenge. If you come into a learning situation and you are 100% successful, you're not challenged at all, you're not going to learn anything. You're not going to spark any brain change because you've already mastered it. So we know that we have to have challenge incorporated. And we do that with our body wave technology. Because within our technology and our algorithms, there's an auto adjust algorithm. That means when you put this brain aware armband on, we're only looking at your best ability to pay attention. And the bar is set there. If you're able to reach or exceed that level of attention, then you're able to activate the activity. If you are able to maintain that level of attention for a given number of seconds, then in the background, we raise the bar just a little bit. And then you have to be that much more attentive in order to be successful. The opposite is true too, because I know many of you are here and you thinking, but my daughter's already struggling or already frustrated in the classroom or at home. I don't want her to be struggling here or frustrated. So we understand that. The opposite is true too, that if you're 100% frustrated, you're not going to learn anything. So if you start getting fatigued or you can't reach that same level of attention, we bring you back down to your last successful level and gradually build you up. So the play attention system is always keeping you at a challenging yet success-based pace. And then we have deliberate practice. So we don't want you to just come into your play attention training and just go through the motions, right? There has to be a specific goal when you start each exercise. And we do that through our AI called Sheer Genius. So when you start an exercise, let's say you're working on attention stamina, that's your ability to direct and sustain your attention. You're going to work on that for one of your first exercises. Our artificial intelligence is going to look at your previous performance and say, Mike, yesterday you completed attention stamina with 70% attention. Today, let's try 72%. And if you do that, you earn a point, and the point goes into your reward system. And so you're always striving for higher levels of achievement. So attention, challenge, deliberate practice, all of the catalysts required for brain change are incorporated into your play attention program. Now, we've been doing this integration of feedback technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping for about 30 years now. But Tufts University School of Medicine wanted to know, is that integration important? Or can we simply give you a series of cognitive exercises, or what you hear a lot about as brain games, and get the same results? So they went into the Boston Public School District, and they had 3 different groups of students, all identified as ADHD. The first received play attention, so they had full integration. The second received just cognitive exercises, so brain games on the computer, but no feedback technology and no behavior shaping. And the third was their control, so they received no intervention at all. And at the end of the study, the play attention students were the only students that showed global improvements in all areas, including academic, social, behavioral, and executive function. They were also the only students that if they started the study and they were on medication, because some of them were on, some of them were not. But if they were on medication and they were in the play attention group, those students had an average decrease in their medication, where the other 2 groups had an average increase. And that goes back to skill building. If we can help you develop the skills that you lack, there may be less of a necessity to mask symptoms. So really good studies. They actually did a follow-up 6 months out to make certain that even once the study had ended, those skills maintained, which they did. If any of you would like to review those studies closer, just type in Tufts in the chat box and we'll make certain to follow up with you and send the articles to you. Just type in Tufts and we'll send those to you following the webinar. So I wanted to share with you one of the exercises I've talked about a little bit here already. And you'll notice on my screen here, I have one of my clients, John. Notice that he has that brain aware armband on his arm, and he has an exercise on the screen. Now, before I explain any further about this particular exercise, I'm going to take a quick poll, a quick quiz, if you will. Let me see if I can find my quizzes here. They've moved them. Polls. There we go. All right. So I want you should be able to see that quiz on the screen right now. What does that body wave armband monitor? If you don't see it on your screen, you can type in your answer here. Is it A, eye movement, B, breathing, C, brain activity, or D, FM radio? Go ahead and type what this body wave armband is monitoring. Eye movement, breathing, brain activity, or FM radio? I need to make certain that everyone's been paying attention. All right, and I'm going to close the polling. Okay. 82% of you responded correctly. So since there are a couple of people here, or a few people here, that did not truly understand what this body wave armband is monitoring, it is monitoring brain activity, okay? Not breathing, not eye movement. The body wave armband on the back, there are those 3 sensors, and they are monitoring your brain activity. Because when you think about attention, attention does not start with your breathing. Your breathing helps with your attention, right? It does not start with your eye movement. Your attentive state begins in the brain. That's what we're monitoring and giving you real-time feedback when that attentive state is happening. So you see my client here has that armband on. It's monitoring his brain activity, and he's working on attention stamina, his ability to direct and sustain his attention at will. And when he starts, he'll see that submarine at the top of the screen. Once he's focused and paying attention, he's able to push that character down to the bottom of the ocean just with his mind, or more specifically, his attention alone. And now he knows that's what it means for me to pay attention. That's my attentive state. If he gets distracted, and distraction can be a variety of things. It could be that he starts daydreaming. It could be that he starts a self-distracting behavior like fidgeting. It could be that someone walks into the room and he can't filter that noise. Immediately, that character starts to float up. And then he has to control that behavior, control that daydreaming, focus back in order to push it back down to the bottom of the ocean. And that's that feedback loop that we were talking about earlier. That feedback loop that only neurotechnology can provide with attention, telling you when you are in that attentive state and when you're not, so that you are able to develop the self-regulation and self-monitoring you need in order to have strong executive function. So when we talk about ADHD or weak executive function, we know that attention's just the tip of the iceberg, right? There are all of these other skills that we need to improve in order to strengthen executive function. And those areas are in play attention. Jumi says, love it. This would be great for my children. Absolutely. Mike, yes, it does monitor brain activity to determine the state of mind. That's correct. Now, when you are enrolled in Play Attention, whether you're a professional user or a home client, you are assigned a personal executive function coach. That's one of our coaches here on staff, and that person is going to help you every step of the way. So one of the initial jobs we have is to customize each individual's program. That's where we're looking at all of these cognitive skills and pinpointing which areas are most important for your program. And we'll set those up. Now, when we look at these different cognitive skills, again, like I've said, these are the areas that are required for executive function. And I'm assuming that many of you are familiar with that term, executive function. But for those of you who may not, executive function you can think of as kind of like the CEO of your brain. It's what allows you to control your attention, your behaviors, your emotions. It allows you to plan and prioritize, organize, avoid procrastination, and remain on task. These are processes that we use every single day, but they tend to be weakest for individuals with ADHD or attention difficulties. And so it's really important that we step back and develop the skills that you need in order to have strong executive function. And these are the particular skills we need. And I forget who we were talking with earlier who said he had the son in fifth grade, Coke. And when I was saying it's such a critical time, that fifth grade is so important because, no one's born with strong executive function, but we all have the potential to develop it. And that development starts right after birth and continues through our mid to late 20s. Unfortunately, for students like Cook's son, we expect everyone to have strong executive function by the time they hit middle school. But that development doesn't always naturally happen. There are a lot of factors that can inhibit that development, one of which is ADHD. And so that's why it's so important that we take the time to develop these foundational skills. So these are the modules that we can incorporate into your program. And remember, you don't have to incorporate all of them. We have to also look at specific areas that are most important for you and customize each individual's plan. And your coach will help you do that. So Coke also says he has ADHD, dyslexia, and math learning challenges, plus eye tracking. So, and he's also in vision therapy. And that is so common. It's very rare that attention difficulties exist on their own. There usually are all of these other difficulties or challenges along with it, like you're saying, ADHD, dyslexia, math challenges. And it's difficult because you don't know where one ends and the other begins because they're so interrelated. But you'll see that within play attention, we're going to incorporate foundational skills that will help in all of these areas. So let's look at the different cognitive areas that we can incorporate. One is attention stamina, being able to direct and sustain your attention at will. Visual tracking, that is a really good one for being able to stay focused and visually track. Like you said, eye tracking is an issue. And this is a good one for others of you who've heard, he does really well when I stand right next to him, but as soon as I walk away, he's out the window and out the door, and then he has that diffused attention. So we work on staying focused and visually tracking. Task completion, that's like homework that should take 15 minutes, but takes 2 hours. That ability to start that task right away, keep your attention on that task until completion, closed-end tasking. Short-term memory is the ability to remember dates, names, facts. We have an exercise called discriminatory processing, which is the ability to filter distractions, both auditory and visual. Because attention deficit, that's really a misnomer, right? There's no one with a complete deficit of attention. Usually they have great attention. It's just scattered over a variety of things. So she may be able to tell you a little bit about what the teacher said, but she also knows what the bird's doing outside and what Johnny's doing in the back of the room because she's picking up a little bit of everything. You may find that in yourself as well, where you kind of know what's going on in that staff meeting, but you're picking up on everything else around you. So we want to teach you how to stay focused to what's important and filter out all of that unnecessary stimuli. And then we also have the academic bridge, which helps with being able to take all of these skills that you've learned and apply them to your real work. So these are considered to be the foundations of executive function. And there is a beginner, intermediate, and advanced skill option in all of the cognitive skill areas. So there are certain benchmarks you're going to have to reach before moving up to the intermediate and then to advanced. And again, our AI is going to track your progress and those benchmarks and graduate you when appropriate. And when we move you up into intermediate and advanced, we tie in more skills that are required for executive function, including processing speed. So you may notice that you or your students or your clients are slow processors. So we work on increasing that processing speed. Task switching, which is that mental flexibility, impulse control, and distractors. So all of those components are incorporated into the intermediate and advanced skill options. And yes, Deb, I can see your questions, and we're going to get to those answers in just a moment. Thank you for posting those. So this is where I was talking about transfer and generalization. You'll notice here that my student is wearing that brain aware armband and she's not looking at the computer screen. She's writing a report. And you can do this as an adult as well. You might have to write a report for work or do some databasing or read a manual. And what you're going to do here is your academic work or your actual work from the office. And as long as you're paying attention to your report or your reading, you're going to hear from the computer, good, great. If you start to drift, you'll hear focus. Then you know you're not in that state you need to be in order to process and complete that assignment. So now you don't have to stand over your child saying, get back on task during homework, right? Play attention is guiding them through that process and helping them actually learn how to self-regulate while doing the homework. This is just as equally important as adults. I've worked with one adult recently, and she's a high school English teacher. Great teacher, but when it comes to the mundane of, grading papers, she was struggling. So we started incorporating Academic Bridge while she was grading papers because it was taking her 2 days on the weekend to get through grading papers. And so when we started incorporating Academic Bridge, she started realizing what she was doing that was actually distracting her, things in the environment that were distracting her. She learned how to pick up on those distractions and self-regulate so that she didn't go down that rabbit hole and take forever on tasks. So now through that development, she's down to 2 hours on the weekend instead of 2 days on the weekend. And that's why we talk about in this presentation, right? Being able to develop and improve executive function and stop working so hard. Because I know many of you at the end of the day are thinking, I am working twice or 4 times as hard as everyone else to get things done. And that's why we need to develop these skills. Now, these additional modules are also available to enhance your program. So in addition to the foundations of executive function, we also have working memory. That's the ability to take information in, hold that information on your mental sticky note in order to complete a task. So it helps with everything, really. It helps with reasoning, evaluating, comprehension. The classic for us as adults is you walk into a room and you know you went into that room for a purpose, but once you get in there, you have no idea why you're there. That's a lapse in working memory. So we work on working memory. Auditory processing, that's the ability to follow through with multiple step verbal instructions. Coke, I would recommend auditory processing for your son as well, because it's also a great one for dyslexia. Hand-eye coordination, that's more about the small motor control. Social skills we talked about earlier, that's the ability to pick up on those social cues, process, and then respond. Spatial memory is remembering where things are located. So if you're constantly losing your keys or your wallet, that's a really good one for you. We do have mental math for both first grade and second grade available. Mindfulness, this is a big one because, we hear so much about how mindfulness helps with the symptoms of ADHD, which is true. But we can't look at someone with ADHD and say, now I want you to practice mindfulness, because mindfulness is hard. It's hard for all of us, but especially if you have that constant running mind. So what we do is we give you a visual representation of what it means to be in the present moment. Because so many times I'll talk to my clients and they'll say, I tried mindfulness for 10 minutes. It just doesn't work for me. Because at the end of 10 minutes, I just wrote my entire grocery list in my mind, right? And that goes back to the hallmark of mindfulness is, let those distracting thoughts come in because they're going to occur. Let those thoughts come in and just let them go, right? Watch them pass by. And that's easier said than done because usually those distracting thoughts come in and we latch onto them and just end up writing our grocery list at the end of that 10 minutes. So we are going to give you a visual representation of what it means to be in the present moment. So again, that goes back to being able to better self-regulate during a mindfulness practice. So in one of our mindfulness exercise, and we have several of them, but in one, you'll see a lotus flower in the middle of the screen. Once you have your mind in the present moment, you're able to start opening the petal on the flower. If you start thinking, when's my next meeting? When do I have to jump on Zoom? When do I have to pick up the kids? When's my next appointment? That petal will start to close. And then you're no longer in the present moment. You have to bring yourself back in order to continue. So we make that accommodation and help you on that mindfulness journey. We also have motor skills for those of you who want to work on coordination. So if you have more bumps, bruises, or accidents than your peers, that's a great one as well. So now you can understand how we are taking all of these areas and developing them and strengthening executive function. Because if you think of executive function and the areas, those mental processes include emotion regulation and organization, task completion. You don't see those here in my list. However, in order for, let's say, be able to control your emotions, that's usually a big one for both children and adults. So emotion regulation, that's part of executive function. In order for you to control your emotions, it's not just one thing, right? You have to be able to pay attention to the entire situation. You have to be able to process that information. You have to control your impulsive nature to just impulsively respond with the first emotion that comes to mind. You have to draw on prior knowledge. Your memory has to be strong so that you can evaluate things that happened in the past that are similar and how should I respond in this instance? So attention, impulse control, memory, mindfulness, even staying in the present moment. All of those are required for emotion regulation. And you're going to address those in every single play attention session. So every time you do a play attention session, you're strengthening executive function. Now, I know we just went through a lot of different cognitive areas, and I told you that we would customize your plan based on your particular needs. And we can do that in a conversation with you. We can also do that if you would like to share neuropsych evaluations you've done in the past or any type of assessments you've done in the past. We can review that information with you and set up your program. Or we do have a couple of assessments available. One is called Focus, which is a norm reference test of attentional control. It takes 20 minutes, and at the end of the 20 minutes, we receive a full report that tells us how you performed compared to the performance of your peers. And we also have a brief available, which is the behavior rating inventory of executive function. And that gives us a really good snapshot of your executive function on a day-to-day basis. So 2 different assessments. Focus assessment, someone's asking specifically, what are we looking at there? We look at consistency, we look at performance, impulse control, and your ability to deal with distractors, both auditory and visual. So again, that's computer-based, so it's more objective. The other one is a questionnaire online, which is more subjective. So we look at attentional control and executive function. Then we need about a 40-minute block of time to review the results and customize your plan. So if you are interested in the assessment package, one or the other or both, usually those are $50 a piece, but we are doing buy one, get one free. So if you want to do both of those assessments, you could do the focus assessment or the brief assessment or do them both. If you do them both, you'll get the buy one, get one free. But just know that we do need that 40-minute block of time follow-up to review the results with you and talk about a plan forward. If you would like to receive more information about the assessments or you would like to register, just type in assessments and we'll reach out to you about the assessment process and help you with that as well. So when you start your play attention program, you'll have everything you need to run your program. So you'll have your armband, your brain aware armband, your customized neurocognitive training plan. Remember, we can customize it through a conversation, past assessments, one of our assessments we just talked about, the behavior shaping component, which I didn't bring up yet. And this is a great component. You can turn it on or off depending on the individual. But if you are working with a child or a client who has a lot of self-distracting behaviors like skin picking, nail biting, chewing on their shirts, the behavior shaping module is great because it gives them a one-to-one correlation on how that behavior affects their attention. And then we're going to use that to help them start to learn how to control those behaviors. You'll have, of course, your personal executive function coach to help you every step of the way. And when we start, not only are we going to set up your profile, but then we need about a 60 to 90-minute block of time to take you through a practice session because we want to make certain that no matter you're a home client or a professional client, we want to make sure you're real comfortable with everything before you start your sessions. So that's what that tutorial is for. And you have a lifetime membership, which means you own the program. So there are no reoccurring fees. It's a one-time fee, and you have a lifetime membership with your access to your personal support as well. Now, when we're setting up your program, keep in mind consistency is everything. Coke says, oh my gosh, my son chews on his wrist when he gets upset. Chewing is big. I usually see it with the shirt, but I understand that's a very common one. And he's probably very unaware of it. And so the behavior shaping will help him learn how to work through that. And we can talk about that a little bit more if you'd like. Now, when we're looking at your schedule, we do recommend you work at least an hour per week, and that hour could be broken up. So you could do 2 30-minute sessions. Most of our clients opt to do 4 15-minute sessions. If you're a professional and you're meeting with clients, you may want to do the 2 30 minutes. If you're at home, you may want to be a little bit more flexible and do the 4 15 minutes or 3 20 minutes, whatever works best for you. You'll start to see good results after about 6 weeks of consistent training. You're going to notice that you are more engaged, you're more focused. Your child finished 3 tasks or 3 instructions without you redirecting or reminding, that you're not so exhausted at the end of the day. So you're going to start noticing these small steps of improvement. But what you're not seeing is what's actually occurring in the brain. And that's that you're causing those new neural pathways to become formed. And in the beginning, they're weak. So you may have seen this in the past with other learning experiences, but that means one day it'll look like you're doing beautifully. And the next day it'll look like you've never heard the word attention before, right? There's going to be a little bit of up and down. But through the practice and repetition, we're strengthening those networks to a point of permanency. And that's the end goal, because we want to know that not only are you going to have these skills now, but you're going to have them 20 years from now. So we have to work to a point of permanency, which usually takes about 40 hours. So if you're working that hour per week, I would plan on about 10 months of consistent training. And around that 40-hour period, you and your executive function coach will look at all your data, make certain you're at all the advanced skill options, make certain everything's transferred and generalized. If everything looks good, we'll start graduating from the program. If it looks like there's more work to be done, we simply customize the plan and we keep going. What's important to remember is that you own the program. So whether it takes you 10 months or 16 months, we continue working as long as necessary. And once you graduate, you can continue using the program for peak performance training. Now, not only will you have your personal executive function coach, that real person helping you, you also have Sheer Genius, our artificial intelligence that guides you through the process. So Sheer Genius is going to set your curriculum every day based on previous performance, set mini goals, that deliberate practice we talked about, track and award points because we have a full reward system written within the program. And it's all managed for you within the program and monitors your progress. So at any point, you can go in and you can look at all of your progress over time. So again, remember, in order to get those outcomes, reach those goals that we talked about in the beginning of our session together, you have to set up that very consistent schedule. So we'll customize your plan, then we'll go through that training tutorial, then you'll start your sessions at least an hour per week. You'll start to see good results after about 6 weeks of consistent training, but it's a learning process. So you're looking at about 40 hours total in order to gain that permanency. We do have 2 different programs available. And Deb is asking about family members for 3 or 4. So the home system comes standard with a user license for 2 people. That means at any one time, you can have 2 family members enrolled in the program. If you want to upgrade, Deb, to 4 family members, each additional license is just $50. So for another $100, you could have a user license for 4. And those user licenses are reusable. The professional system comes with an unlimited user license. So whether you have, 15 clients you want to enroll or 50 clients you want to enroll, you can enroll all of them with no continuing fees for licenses. So you'll receive everything that we discussed, as well as that unlimited support with your executive function coach. Thank you so much. Thanks for all of your well wishes. And we hope you have a great 2024. And we are looking forward to working with you in the new year. Take care, everyone.